I've got a lot of grandbabies, like a lot. And when it comes to finding a gift for each of them, it could add up. But this year, while I was making my way through Walmart, I realized I don't have to spend a lot to get the gifts they'll love.
An OPI mini mani set. I'm gonna do so much nail art.
Oh, yeah! A Lego set. My own Awala water bottle.
Ooh, and that's just half of them.
Shop great gifts they're sure to love for $25 and under at Walmart.
Welcome to the No Guilt Mom Podcast. I am your host, Joanne Crone, joined here by my brilliant co-host, Bree Tucker.
Hello, everybody. How are you? I was trying to make you laugh. I was unsuccessful. But I'm also fiddling over here with my mic, so whatever.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time laughing because we were just discussing, and here's some TMI for you. Period pain, back pain. Oh my gosh, it's the worst.
Oh yeah,
today.
and mine was, the past year of being over 40, like the changes in my body, and we're sitting here going, what is stress and what is just life sucks?
Yeah, it's hard because so Brie and I were also talking about how different people deal with stress and how a lot of people don't talk about how they deal with stress. So that leaves a lot of us who are totally stressed out and losing hair thinking that we're the only ones. I love
the losing hair thing. That's a true struggle.
I've
It's a
been
true
losing
struggle.
hair thing, yeah.
Give us an amen out there in podcast world if you have had that stress of hair
losing
falling
hair.
out.
Yeah, you're losing hair. You can't sleep well.
Yeah.
Your eating habits are all messed up. Either you're not hungry or you want to eat the entire refrigerator.
I like eating my feelings. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
No.
Sometimes I open the refrigerator. I'm like, it's eating feelings time.
What do I have in here that's going to fill this hole at the moment?
It's so you have to laugh else you'll cry.
Yeah, I know. We work our way through it. We can't have tantrums like our little kids.
We
can,
well,
but
we
they look
can.
different. They look different.
That's actually how I think back and I'm like, that is how I learned how to deal with my feelings, is to eat them, which is horrible to say out loud, but I'm sure if you have the same thing, if you are a person who deals with feelings by eating, you know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah.
Feelings are hard, and if we don't have ways that we can express them or deal with them openly, we will go to other means of dealing with them.
Right. And then you look at all the different coping mechanisms. Obviously there's healthy ones and unhealthy ones, and you're just trying to stick with the good ones. So,
but a question that we get a lot from parents is, what exactly is a normal tantrum?
Right.
What is a normal expression of feelings in kids? So we are going to talk about that today. We're going to give you some tips. We're going to talk about some causes of tantrums. And then most importantly, we're going to talk about what to do about tantrums.
yes, we're going to show you some tips on how to kind of work through those and help them get a little bit less.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely. And now on with the show.
You want mom life to be easier. That's our goal too. Our mission is to raise more self-sufficient and independent kids, and we're going to have fun doing it. We're going to help you delegate and step back. Each episode will tackle strategies for positive discipline, making our kids more responsible and making our lives better in the process. Welcome to the No Guilt Mom Podcast.
Okay, so tantrums.
I'm about ready to throw my own tantrum right now.
I'm about
the stinking color wheel of death, people.
I like that you call it the color wheel of death now.
That's from you now. Okay, so I never had Apple stuff until this year. And I have to admit, I had begrudgingly, it is a little bit easier, whatever. But right now, I'm I want to throw my own temper tantrum. I want to stomp my feet and roll around on the floor and cry because my computer has had that stupid color wheel of death and it's not going anywhere. And it's driving me bonkers.
I totally understand that. I totally understand it. And tantrums are something I feel we still have that urge as adults, but I also feel like we know how to regulate our emotions better than our kids.
Hopefully we do. I don't see too many adults pulling those tantrums that we used to see when our kids were little.
Sometimes we do. However, as adults, we've also learned these unhealthy coping mechanisms. Like we're talking about the eating your feelings. Alcohol could be an unhealthy coping mechanism.
Avoidance. The whole head in the sand technique. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I want to start this out by saying tantrums, at least they're not avoiding it or swallowing up their feelings. That is going to be the positive.
I love you finding the silver lining on this. Like,
There's
hey,
a silver lining.
your kid may be screaming and crying over the fact that thing. I don't know. I'm totally blanking on some of these tantrums. Let's have a glimpse. Do you remember any epic tantrums of your kids?
Yeah, I believe my son gave me a ton of epic tantrums to choose from. I remember like 1.5. We went into Target and he just refused to move. And like it was at that stage where he was getting a little too heavy for me to carry. Like he needed to walk and he just like face down on that Target floor right by the shopping cart, so refusing to move because he did not want to go shopping at Target at that moment.
That's like a bonus tantrum because not only do you have the fact that it's a tantrum, but they did it. And then like if you had to add points, like he gets points for tantrum points. He gets points for throwing himself down on the floor. He gets points for it being in public, and he gets points for it being at the entrance. So
everybody saw the tantrum.
Has to interact with the tantrum, either see it or walk around you to get around the tantrum.
Yeah. And being in kind of the mindset I am, though, like I know tantrums are completely normal. They're a normal thing. All kids go through it. There is no shame if your child is having a tantrum.
Right.
So I just stood there and I waited him out, and I didn't even care if anyone was looking at me because I'm like, I'm handling this the way that I know how and doing the best I can.
Right. I'm doing the best I can. I think that's a really good point. Like a lot of us have a lot of concerns and fears about tantrums, and the truth be told, like when it comes to tantrums, the biggest thing about them is that they are, if we strip away all of our own personal emotions about them as parents and what we think it reflects upon us as a parent, like in our parenting, the worst that they really are is just an inconvenience.
They are.
They stop us from what we wanted to be doing.
Well, and then like our inner monologue starts going and being like, oh my gosh, what if my child has a problem? What if this is something that needs to be looked at by the pediatrician? What if this is a sign of something larger? And I think like all of those fear scenarios go through our head, making it even harder to deal with the tantrums.
Right, because then your emotional settings are going off as well. And it's just, it's a rough thing. So first of all, we just want to tell you, tantrums are normal.
They're totally normal. And we talk about this a lot on the podcast about Dr. Tina Payne Bryson's work and Dan Siegel, where it's the upstairs brain and the downstairs brain. And basically the downstairs brain is all reptile and savage, and it's all where the emotions are kept. And then the upstairs brain is that prefrontal cortex area, which is responsible for decision making and it's responsible for impulse control. But when kids get into that tantrum state, they do something where they flip their lid. That upstairs brain and that downstairs brain stop communicating with each other, and they lose complete emotional control. That's the crying on the floor, that's the screaming, that's the yelling, that's maybe the throwing stuff at first. Like these are all pretty typical signs of a tantrum.
So let's dive into this a little bit more because I love this. Like every episode we have, Joanne has this wonderful outline that helps us stay focused because I'm what you call a shiny object syndrome person. And I'll be like, oh, look at that shiny thing right there.
I am too. That's why I need my outline.
And when we're recording our podcast, we're right in front of this beautiful, huge window in the second story so we can look out at everything that's out there. And I constantly like, car, what, squirrel? So back to the checklist, like our outline. Let's talk about the differences between tantrums because that's a huge factor in what's a normal tantrum, quote unquote, and what is a not normal tantrum.
Because many parents will look at their kids and be like, oh, they're doing this on purpose. They're totally doing this on purpose to get their way. And usually if you're talking about a young child, like preschool age or before preschool or even early elementary, I can assure you that it's not being done on purpose. It's going to be one of those situations where they just don't have the capacity to control their emotions yet.
Right.
And regulate their emotions.
So the most that you could possibly say that it's deliberate or on purpose is that this is their way of expressing their emotions because of their developmental stage.
Yes, that's so
that's
strong.
The most, that's the most deliberate it is. It's not, ooh, I'm going to keep mom from getting her shopping done right now.
Yeah.
It's not, ooh, if I do this, I'm going to totally get my way.
It's I have strong emotions and I do not know how to appropriately express them.
Right.
So I'm going to throw a raging tantrum that is going to make everyone look at us in the store.
And those are involuntary.
They're involuntary. They're involuntary.
And they are probably the hardest ones, I think.
They're hard because you're like, oh my gosh, I shouldn't give in because that means they'll get their way.
Well, everybody has their opinion on how to deal with them.
Yeah. And usually like the not giving in thing, I always say like it's okay to negotiate with a tantrum with a kid. Because really, like, you're not negotiating so far as like you're giving up your control, but you are really trying to figure out what your kid wants, what your kid needs, and working out a compromise. We'll be right back after a quick break.
Green Chef in Every Plate is now owned by HelloFresh, and with a wider array of meal plans to choose from, there's something for everyone. I love switching between the brands, and now our listeners can enjoy all the brands at a discount with Joanne and me.
Oh my gosh, it is really time to just step out of the recipe rut and make something fun without having to shop for those ingredients where you like only use a tablespoon of it and you have to buy the whole thing. HelloFresh has those pre-portioned ingredients, which mean less food waste.
And seriously, with the holiday season right around the corner, I am always looking for ways to have less stress. And one of my favorite hacks is to get HelloFresh because it makes mealtime so easy, hassle-free. Everything's delivered. I don't have to hit the grocery store for the umpteenth time that week.
Get 10 free meals at HelloFresh.com/free NGM. Applied across 7 boxes. New subscribers only. Varies by plan. That's 10 free HelloFresh meals just by going to HelloFresh.com/free NGM.
HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit.
This episode is brought to you by Tic Tac. Minty, refreshing, classic. And it's not just the Tic Tac mints. It's the new track by Kenise with beats that'll leave you feeling as refreshed as a Tic Tac and a vibe that'll take you on a ride through 100 layers of flavor. Does it get any fresher than this?
Tic Tac, enjoy the bright side. That 100-layer joyride. Pop one, let's paint the town. Freshman flavors all around. Take a ride on a Tic Tac.
Pick up a pack of Tic Tac mints today.
This episode is brought to you by Vital Farms. Vital Farms is keeping it bullshit-free. Pasture-raised eggs means their hens enjoy outdoor access year-round while foraging on a buffet of local grasses. You can even find the farm name of where the eggs were laid on the side of each carton. Vital Farms knows you'll taste the difference of eggs made with fresh air and sunshine. Look for the black carton at the grocery store and learn more at vitalfarms.com.
So there is a difference though. Like I like what you were saying there when you say about negotiating, because I think a lot of times people run to that whole, I don't negotiate with toddler terrorists.
Yes.
And it's like, yes, I love that, by the way. Shout out to whoever came up with that, the whole toddler terrorist thing. I think it's hilarious. And it's true. Like you're not saying like because they're on the floor crying because they wanted to buy that new toy.
That's not saying buy the toy.
Exactly.
No.
That's not what she's saying right now. We're talking about like getting them the words and the tools that they need to be able to express. So that's where that negotiation comes in.
That's
right?
where the negotiation comes in. And it's acknowledging those strong feelings like, oh, you really want that toy. You want it so bad. And telling them that you understand that.
Right. And then I love our phrase that we got, when we reflect back on our positive discipline background. I love you. And the answer is no.
And no.
I love you and no.
And these tantrums, the involuntary ones, where it's a means of them like not being able to communicate what they're feeling inside, these are different than the ones that older kids throw.
Yeah.
Where older kids, maybe they've realized that tantrums have got them what they wanted in the past, and they do that. Maybe it's a situation where you're at Disneyland, you walk by a store and your 8-year-old just sits down on the ground because you will not go in and buy her something that she really, really wants.
And, and these are the ones that I feel like you see more once they are about school age and up. So like you said about 8, like I see these are deliberate tantrums where they are doing it because it's a tactic that has worked in the past and they've come to that realization. These tend to kind of come in around 5 and up.
Yeah.
I feel like for the most part. There are some exceptions where you have kids that are still having the involuntary ones at 5, but for the most part, by 5, they've kind of figured out how things can kind of work with you.
And I think that you, as a parent, you take the same strategy. You use the same strategy dealing with both.
Right.
So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's deliberate or involuntary. You can use the exact same strategy that we're going to go over.
You just get to use more complicated vocabulary.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's it. That's
more
it.
reasoning.
That's it. So some causes of tantrum, something that are really, really great to look out for as soon as your child has a tantrum, is the HALT acronym, which we love using here.
I love it.
And HALT stands for hungry, angry, lonely, or tired.
If you stop and look at, just take a moment with us as a parent, reflect back on the most recent tantrum your child had. Chances are good that it was caused by somebody being hangry, That's
oh my
what
gosh. That's what happens all the time in our house. It's always hangry tantrums.
Oh, yeah. And it's funny. I get hangry and my daughter gets hangry. And it's funny because she's 12 and she identifies now as hangry. So she knows, like, before we go somewhere, she'll always be like, am I got a snack with them? Because I'm going to need something.
I'm going to need something. Yeah. We've taught our son, too, to always, like, pack snacks or find snacks. And the phrase that it doesn't have to be interesting. It just needs to be food. Because that's something they will get into. They will be like, nothing looks good and I don't like that granola bar right now. And you're like, doesn't have to be interesting. It just has to be food.
We just need to pipe up that blood sugar, man. That's all we got to get.
You need something. So if your child gets hangry, just look for food being the first option.
Right.
And it's always like you want to give them a little bit of protein too. I want to say, because you don't want to feed them sugar because that's just going to exacerbate the problem. They are going to crash. So like peanut butter is really good. Eggs are good.
We have a lot of like individual snacks still in our household because again, my kids are 12 and 13, but we still have those with us. So like I have peanut butter. We have cracker packs. Mm-hmm. We have protein bars. We have Nutri-Grain bars. Like we have a lot of like stuff that they can grab and take with them just in case they need it. And then I, of course, always have one in my purse because again, I know hunger is something that can creep up on me and get me crabby real quick. So,
yeah. Hunger just takes our family down all the time. More so my husband and my son than my daughter and me. Oh my gosh. Sometimes I look over at my husband. He's unnecessarily quiet and I'll just be like, you hungry? He'll be like, yep. And I'm like, got it. We don't need to talk right now.
Isn't it great when you get to that point where you guys know each other's tales or you are at least that self-aware or your kids are that self-aware that they can be like, yep, I need some food.
Yep. I can't talk. I will say stuff I regret. No.
Yeah. And when it does come to the hangry or the hunger angry tantrums with my kids too, and with myself, it's not my normal routine. It's like we had to go do something that was out of our normal routine. Like we had to go do like major shopping for the day. So we were gone for a long time, or we were at, an amusement park, or we went hiking, like something that took us out of our normal routine. And that's where that hunger kind of creeps in. So
yeah, amusement parks are ripe for breakdowns.
Oh, I know. Well, that's why they have the like $10 like kids meal.
Oh my
god. That
gosh.
has like 2 chicken strips and like 3 French fries because they know they can get ya.
We had this family vacation at Disney World once, and my husband, he's normally not a fan of amusement parks. His experience with amusement parks before was his dad would like rush him to all the attractions and feared that they would miss out on just one because it was an expensive theme park ticket. And so he always like pushed back against them. So when we were at Disney, he was just sitting there and watching, and he's like, this is very interesting people watching about how like different people react to tantrums. And
I bet.
So some red flags to look for, because if you're seeing this kind of stuff, then that's a sign that, you should probably talk with a pediatrician or some professional that you trust and how to get some additional guidance on it.
Right, because these things we're going to talk about right now are the indicators that the tantrum is a little bit outside of the norm.
Yeah. So like red flags would be like hurts themselves or others repeatedly.
So this is like a case where like maybe when your child gets upset, they are repeatedly banging their heads against the wall or the floor, intentionally trying to hurt themselves. Or hitting their head with their own body parts, like their hand, for excessively long periods of time, like over a minute.
Yeah.
And just getting harder and harder while hitting, or hurting others on a consistent basis.
On a consistent basis. If it happens like once or twice, that happens. Like biting. Oh my gosh. Biting around the toddler stage. Yeah. That's a
typical.
Pretty normal thing.
We're looking for the reaction to see what happens. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So if they're hurting themselves or others consistently when they're having their tantrums, that's a red flag.
That's a red flag. Yeah. If it goes on for more than 30 minutes.
See, that's a hard one, I feel like, to tell parents, because when you're in a tantrum, 1 minute feels like 5 minutes. So if you have a concern that your child has long tantrums, try your best to either, like if you've got one of those handy dandy little like type watches, like set a timer. Or just look at the time and then go on with your normal whatever you do to handle the tantrum.
And we're going to give you some strategies.
Yes. And to see if you can get it to decrease. But if they consistently are going on for 30 minutes or more, that's not a typical tantrum.
No, it's not a typical tantrum. And just to give kind of an out there example, it going on for 30 minutes, it could be like a thing where maybe it's a neuroatypical behavior, which means it's something to be brought up with your pediatrician if it happens repeatedly. But it could also be that something else is going on that you're not sure of. So like, for instance, my sister was known for throwing tantrums like all the time. My parents were beside themselves on what to do with her tantrums. And she was doing this when she was 5 and 6. And one time she was at her friend's house and they were playing on their slide and she fell and she hurt her arm and she was crying. And my dad was like, oh, she's throwing a tantrum. Like, it's not that bad. The arm's not that bad. And I just remember her crying, just screaming in her room. And my dad's like, oh, it's not that bad. It's not that bad. Until finally, like 30 minutes passed, an hour passed. And he's like, okay.
She's still screaming.
There's something going on. She had broken her arm. My dad felt awful. He felt awful, and he still tells how awful he feels about that. But it's just to show you that, like, if it does go on that long, there's something else going on to be aware of.
That's an extreme case. But
It is an extreme case.
I feel so bad for your dad. My heart is breaking right now.
Yeah, I know. He felt so bad.
We try our best. We try our best.
But my sister, she will attest to this. Like, she is not the most easygoing kid, and she did throw those huge tantrums that were under her control at the time when she was 6, most definitely. So yeah, that's an extreme case, but just to look for other things that may be going on.
So number 3, well, what's another red flag for number 3?
It can't be redirected.
Right. So that's like one where you've got your techniques, you're talking to your child, you're trying to move them on either by talking about emotions and recognizing what's going on, or you've got a case where you're like, okay, we have to, I call them transitions. We have to transition from the park to the car. And they absolutely, under no circumstances, can be redirected. And then that rolls into the tantrum lasting for more than 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So if you consistently have an issue.
Consistently. I would say like more than 3 or 4 times per week for like a month.
Right. Cannot get them redirected, cannot get them out of the tantrum and to move on. That's a red flag.
That's a red flag. That's something to discuss with a pediatrician.
We'll be right back after a quick break. This episode is brought to you by Amazon. The holidays are here, and you know what that means? It's time to get your friends and family the gifts they deserve. Take the stress out of shopping with Amazon's great deals and low prices on a huge range of items from toys to tech and much more. Whoever you're gifting for, Amazon has great prices on everything you need this holiday season. Shop Black Friday week starting November 21st.
In the time it takes us to say, we're using Folgers Instant Coffee, seamlessly blended with water and ice. A splash of whatever kind of milk is your thing. And gotta get that caramel drizzle. All to make a toasty, roasty, caramel iced coffee. You could be enjoying it. Every damn sip of it. Damn right. It's Folgers Instant.
This holiday season, design your dreams and discover the wide range of iconic Ralph Lauren fragrances to enchant your friends and family. Featuring the bold Polo 67 or the energizing Polo Red. Discover a wide selection of Ralph Lauren fragrances gift sets and look out for a complimentary duffel bag at your local Macy's or on Macys.com. The fragrance destination. Purchase needed. See details in stores. Select doors only while stock lasts.
And then also happens due to environment, like lights, sounds, transition to other activities. That can indicate something with maybe they're a little more attuned to their senses or have heightened senses than other people might. And it's just something to be aware of. And again, talk with a pediatrician.
Those are the times that you're going to we're not saying that there is something definitely wrong going on, but we're saying that these are definitely indicators that could mean that it's more than a typical tantrum and that you might need some additional intervention or resources to work with this with your child.
And remember, these things do happen, like, I mean, once in a while to all kids. Yeah. So we're talking about a consistent basis. I feel like we repeated that one a lot, but it does. It makes the difference. It's the consistent basis that these things happen on.
So now that they know what the red flags are, and we've talked about the different types of tantrums, what are we supposed to do?
So we talked about one of the strategies, feed them. If it's a hungry thing, feed them, wait 20 minutes, and see how rational they become.
Okay, I have to say, like, that's funny because talking again about the whole feeding thing, I remember my kids, when they were really little, they weren't in daycare. They were with my mom. I was fortunate enough to be able to have that happen. But there was a short period of time there where I worked at, we had a childcare and I needed to bring my kids in there for, I don't know, like a week. Something was going on with our family. I forget what exactly. And when I brought my son in, he was probably 15 months old or so. And when I brought him into the nursery there, I was like, okay, I just want you guys to know if he starts crying and you can't, it doesn't need to be changed, whatever. Feed him. And they were like, okay. And I'm like, no, I mean, like, even if you just fed him, feed him again. He's a hungry kid.
Yeah.
That 90% of the time that takes care of what's going on. And if he's continuously crying, I'm across the hallway here, just knock on my door and I will come on over.
Yeah.
And it was funny. They were like, okay, whatever. And I think the person, because I worked with that department somewhat, they knew me. They even rolled their eyes and were like, okay.
Oh.
And then like when I came to pick him up at the end of the day, one of the workers was like, yeah, Bree, we had no idea. Like he would not stop fussing and we had just fed him. Give him another bottle. Totally fine. I'm
Totally
like,
fine.
yeah, I know.
He was just a hungry kid.
He's a chomper.
So yes, feed them. The second thing, if it is an angry thing or a lonely thing, connect. And there's some ways to connect with them. I used to use this with my son all the time. It came from the book Happy's Toddler on the Block by Dr. Harvey Karp. And it's getting down to the kids' level and then first acknowledging their emotions. But you acknowledge their emotions in something he calls toddler ease.
Yes, I love his toddler ease.
It's short and it's filled with emotion. So instead of like, if Bree was mad right now and a toddler, and I would say to her, oh, you're really mad right now. Nope, she wouldn't get that as a toddler. She has no idea what that means. But if I would go down to her eye level and say, mad, so mad.
And then he kind of stares at you for a second. They're like, oh, wait. Oh, they get it.
Yeah. Using those really just short little phrases, making sure that they can know the emotion that you're talking about based on the tone of your voice.
So I just love Dr. Harvey Karp. He has some amazing techniques. So if you haven't checked him out, we'll have a link here in the show notes for that one.
Something else he talks about is fast food speak.
Yes. What do they do when you order something in a drive-thru?
They just repeat it back to you.
They repeat it. Yes. So you're going to repeat back what your child says to you.
Yeah.
And what that does is it helps them calm down a little bit because they're not feeling alone and overwhelmed with their emotions. All of a sudden, there's another adult here who gets it and they start to feel calmer and they feel less in that panicky state.
And then you will see a change in your child as soon as this happens. You'll see them they'll soften their facial features, they'll relax their body. It'll be such like a slight shift, but watch them and you'll notice it. And that's when you can suggest doing something like, are you hungry? Maybe some food, like especially if you're talking to a 5 or 6 year old, be like, do you want to calm down? Do you want to cuddle? Offering those kind of solutions to help them feel better.
You're talking them through the solution if there is one, because a lot of times there is some kind of a solution. It just may not be the solution that, you know that your toddler had wanted. Like when they want to go outside and it's pouring rain and a thunderstorm. They can't go outside in a thunderstorm. So your answer is still going to be no, but you'll come up with a solution.
Yeah.
Now, one thing I want to say about this one too, but actually about all of these with connecting and feeding them is that we're talking about them here on the podcast. I think you can just tell that we're referring to them in a way that you're dealing with a toddler or a preschooler, but they work with older kids too.
They totally work with older kids.
You just up your vocabulary.
Yeah.
And the way you're doing it.
Instead of 2 words in a sentence, you can go to 4. You can go to 5.
You can just repeat back.
Something that I would caution you against, though, is that adults tend to go on Charlie Brown. Like they will give really, really long explanations when kids are upset.
Yeah, I have to check myself a lot on that because I'll just keep going and going and going, waiting for that reciprocal from my child.
Yeah.
And sometimes they don't have it yet. They're processing themselves. So then it starts turning into that white noise, like, so I know that's me a lot. I have to like pinch myself to stop. Stop talking.
I have to too, and I have to make sure like it's really short, and I have to stop myself from trying to fill in the silence because you could be like, you're really mad, and then your kid won't say anything, and your first inclination would be like to explain why they're really mad.
Right.
But don't. I have to stop myself on this one too. I like just stop and I wait and I start counting in my head, and pretty soon, like my kid will tell me why they're mad or if I even got it right.
And sometimes they won't. Sometimes they'll come back with a totally different topic. And you know what that means? That they're okay to move on at that moment. Doesn't mean that it's all said and done, but it does mean that I don't want to dwell on this anymore right now. I need time.
Yep. So hungry, angry, lonely. We give you strategies for those. Tired. If you suspect the tantrums are because of tiredness, the best thing to do is to check their sleep schedule. Whether they need naps, maybe they need to go down earlier. I know with my kids, we would have to always tell, like when they went to go to grandparents' houses, we're like, okay, now when they're really tired, they're going to act like it's the biggest party in the world and they're having so much fun and they're laughing and they get really energetic. That's the sign it's bedtime. And it's totally totally like contrary to what you think the bedtime sign would be.
And isn't it funny that you have to remind the grandparents of that a lot?
Yeah.
It's almost like, I think it's like that thought process. We were just talking with Jessica Leahy this morning, and she was talking about how sometimes you forget the difficult things.
Yeah.
So that and we talk about that with childbirth. Like you sometimes forget about all the pain of childbirth, the degree of it, so that you want to have more kids, right?
Yes.
And I think that with grandparents, it's kind of like that. I think sometimes they forget the difficulties of parenting sometimes, so that they see their beautiful grandkids, and then all of a sudden they just poof. I'm like, come on, you parented me.
Because it honestly, like, but when you see a tired child, a lot of tired children present as party time. And so these kids won't go to bed until like 9, 10 p.m. And then they're in a horrible mood the next day. And the parents are like, I just don't know. I can't deal with them. And usually it's just a sign they need more sleep, which is great to know because that's an easy fix.
Definitely. And some things that affect that sleep is talking about like screen time does actually have a factor in that.
I am not ashamed for screen time. Like, I think like what parents have been told about screen time produces this horrible shame, especially during this pandemic when like no one could go outside.
Right. But what I'm talking about though is the effects of a screen right before bed.
Yes.
That's what I'm talking about. So like there are actual studies, and I think we're all aware of them at this point in time, or many of us are aware of them, that the actual light from the screen does have an impact on, or does have an effect on your brain, tends to wake it up more. So the more of a break you can have between screen time and when your child is expected to relax and go to sleep, the better.
Because it stops the release of melatonin, which is the sleep hormone.
Yes. Yes. So typically what we suggest is about 30 minutes before bedtime. More if you can swing it, that's awesome. But about a good 30-minute buffer is enough time for your brain to kind of chill out and be like, okay, I'm ready for sleep.
Yeah. And I think these work for adults as well, because oh my gosh, if I was angry or lonely, how much would I want someone just to sympathize with me and be like, yeah, it totally sucks.
Yeah.
I get
sometimes with that lonely,
you're angry,
give me a hug, just cuddle.
Yeah. Don't try to solve my problems for me. Just tell me how much it sucks and you're there with me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, these work for adults too. So hopefully you picked up some tips of your own to use. I use so many of these tips with myself.
I know.
Grumpy.
I have days where I come home and I'm like, I just want a hug. I just need a hug.
Yeah.
Somebody hug me. And then if my daughter's there, she looks around and she'll be like, oh crap, it's only me.
Oh,
all right, here you go.
No.
She's 12. It's all right. I still get it. She still gives it, but she does legit look around and be like, anybody else? Anybody else? Miguel, where you at? No? It's all on me.
She looks at the dog, Max. Max, you gotta.
Mom, there's a dog. He'll give you licks. Look. So anyway, the joys.
But now, hopefully, you have some tactics you can try next time and some strategies. Let us know how this worked for you. Can you shoot us an email? hello@noguiltmom.com. We love getting these emails, and we usually record little videos back to you. So we would love to talk to you. It's hello@noguiltmom.com. Tell us how it worked for you. And until next time, the best mom is a happy mom. Take care of you. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for stopping by.
No one told us the truth about parenthood. Why? This is the podcast everyone needed before they had kids, because now that those little ones are here, there is a lot to unpack. I'm Rachel Shepherdota, and I am your host for the podcast No One Told Us, where we tell the truth about parenting and let you in on all the stuff you really should have known about before having kids. I am the founder of Hey Sleepy Baby, but this podcast is so much more than sleep. We'll be diving into all the topics that you really care about and need to know while you do your best job raising those adorable tiny humans. Our goal is to just make you feel less alone and less overwhelmed. There are so many things that no one tells us before becoming a parent, and I think that we should really pull back the curtain on becoming a first-time or second-time mom or dad to share the good, the bad, and the ugly. We'll have a little education, a little fun, and a whole lot of heart that goes into each and every episode. So join me and our amazing guests each week to hear us talk about what no one told us.